Meet Alexander Zverev, or more commonly known as Sasha Zverev, a 24-year-old 6'6" German tennis player known for his big attacking game and his even bigger results to back it up.
Oh, what a way to finish!
Game, set, and match, Zverev.
Specifically this year, when he downed world number 1 and the winner of the first 3 majors Novak Djokovic in the semifinals at the 2020 Summer Olympic Games. He went on to win that final and became the first German man to ever win a singles gold medal in Olympic tennis. You know, there's a notion in tennis, and well, in life frankly, that how your life is off the court will translate to how you play on the court. And looking at Zverev's most recent results,
What do you want me to say?
US Open semifinalist, Cincinnati Masters Series champion, and Olympic gold medal winner, you'd think his life would be straight peaches and cream. But maybe this saying doesn't apply to Sasha, because if you're a casual fan, you probably know very little, or nothing for that matter, of the possible court case that could be looming for the world number 4. On November 5th, 2020, an article on RacquetMag.com was released titled Olya's Story by writer and infamous tennis journalist Ben Rothenberg. Throughout this article, Olya Sharypova, former girlfriend of Sasha Zverev, shares her stories and memories of the numerous times she was abused by the tennis star. The two met as 14-year-olds on the junior tennis circuit during a tournament in the United States. Olga, or Olya, which she's known by to her friends, played competitive tennis for 10 years, from the time she was 5 to age 15. Once she decided to pursue other things and give the sport up, her relationship with Sasha ended, due to their living situations, of course, Sasha being in Germany and Olya in Moscow, Russia. 6 years later, Olya posts a selfie on Instagram showing that she was in New York, although she was actually in Moscow at the time she posted it. The selfie is what led Zverev to hit her up, as he just was in New York playing the US Open. He asked her to go see him in Monaco, which brought back the initial attraction from when they were 14. Only a few months into their relationship at the end of 2018, Olya can recall the first instances of when Zverev displayed violence, emotional violence, towards her. It was during a family trip with the Zverevs in the Maldives. Although nothing physical occurred, Olya said these early arguments were already painful for her and was starting to take a toll on her mentally. As their relationship continued, as did her interview with Ben, Olya goes on to tell Ben that the violence didn't remain emotional, where he would tell her, "You're a nobody. You didn't earn anything in this life. I'm a successful person. I earn money, but you're nobody." But that it also turned physical. The first time ever being in Monaco, in Sasha's apartment. The time frame of it all a little unclear for Olya, but she says they had a really big fight, and as she was standing in the hallway getting ready to leave, Alexander Zverev hit her head into the wall and she slumped down to the floor. Olya says he got scared, so he started lying. "You hit me first. I didn't do it. I'd never do that." Olya would split her time traveling the world with her tennis star boyfriend, while also living at home in Moscow. She said that Zverev displayed controlling, possessive behavior whenever she was at home or just hanging out with friends or family. It'd get so bad at times that Olya would block him altogether, which in turn led Sasha to start calling her friends instead. This type of toxicity was starting to build and affect Olya's emotional well-being. She said her parents started noticing a shift in her demeanor, as she was no longer the positive, outgoing girl they once knew. Sharypova was in a cycle at this point. She gave up her life and career to start supporting someone she says she wanted to give everything to. "I always stayed, and I would talk and say, 'What are you doing? It's not normal. You can't do this to women.' And after every fight, Sasha would try to fix things, apologize, and knew he was doing wrong." Enough became enough for Olya, and she sought out to finally end this emotional roller coaster she'd been on for a little less than a year. It was August of 2019, 1 week before the final slam of the year, the US Open. Zverev was going into the tournament as the number 6 seed, but wasn't really playing like it. He was going through some service woes, and just came off a first round loss at Wimbledon a couple months ago. Olya remembers screaming. She was screaming because it wasn't one of their normal fights. She was scared and screaming, and because of this, Zverev threw her down on the bed and sat on her face with a pillow. "I couldn't breathe for some time, and I'm just trying to get out of it," Olya said. "I'm screaming and started to run." Olya managed to break free from Zverev and ran barefoot into the corridor of their Lotte New York Palace hotel room, which Sasha has promotional ties with during the tournament. She ran into the hall and made it down to the first floor reception area, where she hid and curled up on a couch near a wall. Zverev didn't immediately chase her down because there were other people in the hall during that time. Olya was able to make it outside and keep hidden as she peeked and saw Sasha outside as well. However, he was stopped by a couple of guys who had just noticed Olya's distress as she was out frantic and barefoot on 5th Avenue. They distracted him, giving her time to escape and call a friend. She sent her location to Vasil Surduk, an old childhood tennis friend from Moscow. She'd actually seen Surduk earlier that day as they went sightseeing in New York. However, that was cut short because of Sasha. Surduk says Olya and Sasha were talking on the phone and he said something to her that made her cry. They spent about 2.5 hours together that day before he dropped her back off at the hotel. Surduk was almost back in New Jersey, where he resides with his stepmother, Mrs. V, when he was getting frantic texts and calls from Sharypova asking if he could pick her up from the hotel. He turned around, picked her up, and brought her to New Jersey, where Sharypova could only feel that she was finally safe from Sasha, for the time being. It was here where Olya was reunited with Sasha due to the fact that both Vasil and Mrs. V didn't believe Olya's accusations about Zverev. Surduk said he received texts from Zverev later on that night asking if he knew where Olya was, followed by saying that in such conflicts or situations, he's biased towards believing the man because he is in fact a man. So here's Olya, his childhood friend of many years, her countryman, her former tennis buddy, picking her up from a New York City hotel barefoot, as she previously called and texted him frantically to do so, admittedly saying he believed her famous tennis superstar boyfriend over her. So how does Olga Sharypova make herself credible to people she doesn't even know, who talk shit about her online for accusing Zverev of such things and having acne during this time due to high stress? All she can do is continue to tell her story in hopes of inspiring others who are going through similar toxic relationships. After the incident the night before, Val drove Olya back to New York in hopes of getting her things back. When she got up to the room, most of her stuff was thrown together in the corridor of the hotel. She snapped a pic of it, saying she has to pack, but she's missing something crucial, her passport, which prevented her from getting back to Russia as soon as possible. When Val and Olya returned home, Mrs. V felt it was up to her to fix Sharypova's problems with Zverev, and felt she had the wisdom and experience to do so. Zverev had called Val on video chat to check up on Olya once again. Only this time, Mrs. V took the phone and invited Zverev to her New Jersey home, despite Olya's wishes. Surduk met and picked up Zverev from the USTA Billie Jean King National Tennis Center and brought him to his home. Mrs. V recalls being immediately charmed by Sasha. She goes on to say, "I didn't believe her. I was absolutely on his side." She essentially made Sharypova speak with him, as she was currently living under her house rules. She even encouraged Sasha to propose to her at one point. Within 3 days after that traumatic night, Sharypova was back with Zverev, just in time for their 1-year anniversary on September 5th, 2019. And miraculously, her passport had turned up by then. By this point, Sharypova had hit crazy. Next stop, Geneva, Switzerland. Later on during that month, at the 2019 Laver Cup, Sharypova describes another instance where Zverev got violent with her. Laver Cup is a Team 8 created event and sports management agency that had previous ties with Sasha, up until the start of 2021, where they decided to split ways. Sharypova recalls what happened here as the worst altercation yet between the two. In their Geneva hotel room, Sharypova says she and Zverev had another fight, and this time he punched her in the face for the first time. A visibly distraught Olya describes how she was in a deep depression and didn't understand why or how she got into a situation like this, and even broke down crying during this part of her story in her interview with Ben. After the fight, Olya, still distraught and unstable at this point, decided to inject herself with insulin she found in Zverev's room, just after locking herself in the bathroom. According to her, it was as if she was dying, emotionally dying, and couldn't live that way anymore, to be with Zverev for his sake, as she says he wouldn't let her leave. Zverev came back to the room and realized what Olya had done. He then began banging on the door, to then leaving and coming back with an unnamed tournament official to get her out, persuading her to open the door, which she eventually does. She recovered, but as a result, spent 3 days in bed, depressed. It wouldn't end there though. Olya told Ben she flew with him to China, where Sasha was playing in 2 events, the China Open in Beijing and the Rolex Shanghai Masters event.
It's got him again.
She would go on to say that Mrs. V from New Jersey was actually staying in Phuket, Thailand, where she had a home, would meet them in Shanghai. She brought them a large bag of fruit as a gift, which Sharypova left in the hotel room, while she and Mrs. V went to the spa. She received numerous calls and texts while she was out away from Sasha, because she left the fruit basket on his massage table, telling her to come home. And once she did, Sasha immediately left, saying, "I was waiting for you." Now, you should wait for me. During this time alone, while Sasha was away, Olya explained how her mind was racing, thinking about all she's gone through, what will happen when Sasha returns. She didn't think, she just did, and injected herself with insulin, she found, for the second time. When Zverev returned, she was unresponsive, so he gave her a package of sugar, which helped her recover. Why did you do this to me? You understand what you did to me right now? If you will die in my room, it will be big problems for me. It's really a big responsibility for me. You said that you didn't want to live because of me? Why did you say this? The next morning, the fight continued. Zverev blaming Olya for her trying to kill herself. He then tells her not to attend his match against Russian Andrei Rublev on October 10th and to head back to Moscow instead. But in Zverev's words, he said, if it's like that, you should pack your stuff and go f yourself. Sharypova says she jumped up and said okay immediately and started packing her stuff. As she was showering, Zverev was right outside the door, still verbally attacking her. Once she was done, Zverev, still irate, told her to pack her stuff and leave right now, as she stood there naked with a towel on. Then Olya says Sasha grabbed her by the throat and pushed her up against the tile wall of the bathroom. He started to punch her. They started fighting. Olya flailing her arms trying to protect herself and Zverev still punching while insulting her at the same time. The fight ended when Zverev called someone on his phone and left the hotel room. Olya locks herself in the bathroom. In comes someone in the room. She heard a voice through the door. Alexander Zverev Sr., Sasha's father, saying, "You have until evening to pack your stuff. If you don't leave, I will sue you because I have photos of how you punched my son." On October 9th, during Zverev's second round win over Jeremy Chardy, there's footage of Olya in his player box, which is reserved for family, friends, and the rest of the team. After the match, Zverev is interviewed and all seems totally normal. However, on October 10th, the date the alleged attack/fight took place, Olya is not seen in Sasha's player box. And even more disturbing is that you can see what appears to be scratch marks around Sasha's neck during his post-match interview. What's even more crazy is the fact that Olya sent pictures of her marked up face and bruised arm to a friend through popular instant messaging app WhatsApp, telling him what had occurred with Zverev. Olya says she's telling her story not in hopes of bringing Zverev to justice or charging him criminally, but to help others, those who are in similar situations, those too scared to leave, those who are hopeless. She wants them to know that if she could do it, then so can you. Currently, the ATP, formerly known as the Association of Tennis Professionals, does not have a domestic violence policy, and there was no indication of whether or not they were going to investigate Sharypova's claims. On October 28, 2020, Olya shared a selfie on Instagram, captioning, "I have been beaten, and I will not be silenced anymore." She continued on that she was a victim of domestic violence, but didn't say who the abuser was. In an interview later that day with Russian website Championat, Olya said his name, Sasha Zverev. 8 days later, Ben Rothenberg's Olya story hits the internet, and 8 days after that, the ATP released a statement that did not mention any name or specifics, but said, "The ATP fully condemns any form of violence or abuse. We expect all members of the tour to do the same, and to refrain from any conduct that is violent, abusive, or puts others at risk. In circumstances where allegations of violence or abuse are made against any member of the tour, legal authorities investigate and due process is applied. We then review the outcome and decide the appropriate course of action. Otherwise, we are unable to comment further on specific allegations." Sharypova says the ATP has never reached out to her regarding her claims. However, Olya's story is gaining more and more traction. Earlier this year, ESPN tennis correspondent and former coach of Simona Halep, Darren Cahill, said the ATP has been poor and negligent in addressing this. Tennis commentator of many years, Mary Carrillo, refused to commentate during the 2021 Laver Cup matches due to nothing being done about this issue. Zverev has since been labeled an abuser all over Twitter. However, the ATP doesn't seem to really like that. During the Laver Cup this year, they blocked any tweets and people who stated Zverev is in fact an abuser. No talk of that would be allowed on their platform. But why? The story is out for the public to read. Whether true or not, an investigation must occur. On August 21st, 2021, ATP CEO Massimo Cavelli said, "As an organization, we recognize the need to be doing more to ensure everyone in professional tennis feels safe and protected. The recommendations of the safeguarding report will help us approach this in a robust way. We are committed to making meaningful steps forward and know this won't be an overnight process. The allegations raised against Alexander Zverev are serious, and we have a responsibility to address them. We hope our investigation will allow us to establish the facts and determine appropriate follow-up action. We understand Zverev welcomes our investigation and acknowledge that he has denied all allegations. We will also be monitoring any further legal developments following the preliminary injunction obtained by Zverev in the German courts. So what do you guys think? Did Zverev in fact commit domestic violence against his former girlfriend, Olya Sharypova? Or is this something that she's making up? If you're really interested in this story and want to read up on it some more, I went ahead and included the 2 articles in which Olya Sharypova spoke about those traumatic nights.
Then, well, one last thing. You know, I know that there's going to be a lot of people that right now are trying to wipe a smile off my face, but under this mask I'm smiling brightly. I feel incredible on court. I have the people that I love around me. You know, I'm probably going to be a father very soon, so you know, everything is great in my life, and yeah, the people that are trying, they can keep trying, but you know, I'm still smiling under this mask even though you can see.